Welcome to Journalist Roundtable. I'm Larry Casper. Our guests are Christina Lengyel from the Center Square and Steve Ulrich from Politics PA. Steve, we're going to start with you. You filed a story about a congressman refusing his salary while the federal government shutdown continues. Tell us about that.
First person that came out of the gate after the announcement of the federal government shutdown was Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick out of the 1st Congressional District, mostly in Bucks County. And Fitzpatrick has been one of the rare Republicans that's been able to win in what has traditionally been a Democratic stronghold. Bucks County has always had more Democrats than Republicans up until this time. So in a lot of ways, it was smart politics for Fitzpatrick to do so. It was also very smart for him to be the first one out there. A number of Pennsylvania congressmen followed suit, but for Fitzpatrick to jump forth, he negated any opportunity that his possible Republican opponent, Bob Harvey, might have to criticize. And it was just the right thing to do. I think when Americans look at the federal government shutdown or the state budget impasse, you kind of say to yourself, well, if the government shut down, why would they get paid? Smart move by Brian Fitzpatrick.
Steve, when Fitzpatrick announced his intentions, what did he say about his colleagues? Because I can imagine a politician taking advantage of being in the spotlight for a story like this and trying to make a point.
I think he really wanted to emphasize the fact that despite the fact that you weren't hearing any other Republicans jump to the forefront, that's not only statewide, that's also nationally. That was more of a look at me, look what I'm willing to do, look at the point I'm trying to make, more so than to be critical toward any possible opponent in the 1st Congressional District or being critical of any of the other members of the Pennsylvania delegation.
As you pointed out, Steve, Fitzpatrick seems to have started a trend here because other PA congressmen are following his example and refusing their salaries too.
It's just the right thing to do. It's just, as I keep repeating, it's just good politics. And now you found that another number of other Democrats jumped forward, Republicans as well, and said, no, at this point, we need to show that we're really still in touch with the American people, that while they may not understand why we've shut things down, we're not going to allow anyone else to have the opportunity to say, why are you taking your salary while my job is being furloughed? Why are you continuing to get all the benefits you've received as being a member of the elected body, but my job is in jeopardy? So it didn't take long. Fitzpatrick was first, and it was the right thing to do.
Steve, let's consider the budget impasse here in Pennsylvania. And I understand Senate President Pro Tem Kim Ward, not surprisingly, is blaming Democrats for the delay in finalizing the budget. But can you tell us specifically what she said?
Sure. We've reached now day 108 of the state budget impasse, and it's still a war of words. You'll often hear Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro mention that he's one of 2 states nationally that works with a divided legislature. The House is controlled by the Democrats, the Senate is controlled by the Republicans, and they're just going head to head against each other, trying to find a common ground for the $51.4 billion budget proposal that Josh Shapiro made back in early February. Kim Ward, standing up for the Senate Republicans, has basically criticized Democrats for not responding positively to the budget proposal that Senate Republicans put forward, which I may be a little off on this, I believe is around $48 billion. So we do have a gap there. And her point was, why can't we get House Democrats to realize that we don't want to drain the rainy day fund, that we don't want to have this end up being a tax increase on all members of the Commonwealth? Why won't House Democrats come to the table? House Democrats, in turn, passed a budget that is about $800 million. I think we're talking about 50.8, 50.6 in that range, making the announcement essentially that we're not going to drain the rainy day fund as much as Senate Republicans thought they would. And now they're calling Republicans back to the table. You'll hear Shapiro say that he made his budget proposal 230 days ago, and that Senate Republicans have only been in session 30 plus days. So I'm afraid it's a war of words. Everyone is trying to throw mud at each other and hope it sticks. But I think Pennsylvanians have pretty much run out of time and patience and want to see this budget impasse settled.
One more question about the state budget impasse, Steve. And as far as a war of words is concerned, I understand Senator Ward said that in effect, really, Democrats are poised to deliver a tax increase if they have their way. Did you see that? And as a reporter, can you say if there's any accuracy to that statement?
It's hard for me to get my hands around what exactly Senator Ward meant by that. I think she was coming at the angle that if you reduce the rainy day fund, eventually we're going to have to go back to the taxpayers of the Commonwealth and ask for more to be able to fund future plans, whether it's mass transit, where may be other priorities that either the Republicans or Democrats have. I think, Larry, the one thing that really jumped out at me during her interview or radio interview during that spot was the host mentioned that city of Philadelphia, as part of this celebrations of immigrants throughout the city, raised the flag of communist China over on the top of the flagpole at City Hall. And that was the first Senator Ward had heard of it. She was incredulous and kind of blurted out that, it's hard to believe that the city of Philadelphia is even part of Pennsylvania. And it was just it was eye-opening as a reporter, probably more so than some of the other statements that came forward, that someone from Westmoreland County might take a little bit of a shot at the city of Philadelphia.
Thank you very much, Steve. Now, Christina, let's get you involved and let's talk about a story you've been working on. Now, we know that the governor's house was firebombed last spring, but there are things happening in court involving the suspect. What's going on?
Yeah, so the suspect, Cody Balmer, pled guilty to attempted murder, terrorism, arson, several counts. So that has sort of closed the chapter. He's being given 25 to 50 years as a sentence. And Governor Shapiro came out and spoke from the Capitol following the guilty plea and said that he was happy with the plea. And, he commended District Attorney Franchardo for his work on the case.
Let's talk about the governor's reaction to Cody Balmer pleading guilty in this situation, especially to murder. And this is a highly personal thing, obviously, for not just the governor, but his family was in the house too.
Yeah, so he's been really consistent about how he's talked about it, but he said that when he used that word, attempted murder, it was really difficult for him to say because he was grappling with the fact that someone really did want to kill him and, in fact, burn his family alive while they slept. So that's a very traumatic event for the governor. He's been very consistent in how he talks about the case itself. He hasn't really spoken much about Cody Balmer motive or what was going on in that person's mind. He's just kind of spoken out about political violence and the impact it had on his family personally.
Now, let's talk about video that was taken the night of the attack on the governor's mansion. I understand it shows Cody Balmer not being confronted by security people as he came and as he left. Did any changes in security result from that attack?
Yes, absolutely. They have definitely beefed up security around the governor and his family since then. When you watch the videos, it's chilling because it's such a extended period of time where he's able to just be in the residence undetected, lighting fires, and you can see that it could have been a whole lot worse when you watch it. But certainly, if you spend any time, if you see the governor out and about, the increased security is visibly obvious if you've followed him through press conferences or anything like that.
Has Cody Balmer said anything about his motive in this crime?
So at the time, he brought up Palestine as one of his reasons. His family has said that he was, not well mentally. People have kind of gone back and forth talking about whether or not it merits a hate crime or if it's a political crime. And he did indeed plead guilty to terrorism. So that kind of speaks to that a little. But it's not clear how much was politically motivated, how much had to do with mental illness. seems like a confluence of factors.
Christina, you also did a story about the ceasefire in Gaza and the hostages being released, and you wrote a story about Governor Shapiro's reaction to this. And why is his voice particularly significant in this situation?
I think it's particularly significant because he's had the spotlight on him about this when he was being considered as the vice presidential candidate alongside Kamala Harris. It definitely came up. Some writing that he had done in college in the 90s came up where he had said that he didn't think that Palestinians were likely to want peace. Since then, he has very much changed his tone about it, and he's been very critical of Benjamin Netanyahu while remaining supportive of Israel. So I think for those reasons, and just as, a very prominent Jewish voice in the country, he's, people look to him for his response to these things.
As you know, Christina, the governor and President Trump are often at odds over policies. What did the governor say about President Trump and his role in the Gaza ceasefire?
I think he said he appreciated the president. He didn't call him out by name. He did kind of have a sort of cautious tone of, I hope moving forward that they're able to, really lay out a good plan. I think not that the ceasefire was by any means the easy part, but certainly peace going forward will be a challenge.
Steve, let's get you involved again and consider a story that is about campaign mailers and concerns from the League of Women Voters. They say that there are certain campaign mailers out there that are misleading voters. But first, briefly, what's the race that is at stake here?
The race, Larry, is probably the most under the radar race you could possibly imagine. Every 10 years, Pennsylvania's Supreme Court justices are up for retention. Retention is basically whether the voters of the Commonwealth want to allow the justices to have another 10-year term. Mm-hmm. Justices in the Supreme, the Superior, and the Commonwealth courts all run under the banner of a party, but when they're up for retention, those party labels are taken away. So when you look at Christine Donahue, Kevin Dougherty, David Wecht, who are the three Supreme Court justices who are up for retention. Pennsylvania currently has a 5-2 Democratic majority on the Supreme Court. Those three justices are up for election in November. When you turn over the back of your ballot, you're going to see just a simple yes or no question. Should they be retained for another 10 years? You'll check yes or no. If you didn't know better, you wouldn't know if they were Democrat or Republican. You may not know anything about them. All you're being asked to do is say yes or no. Republicans have found this opportunity to change the makeup of the court. As I mentioned, Democrats are 5-2 in control, and it's viewed as a more liberal court. Republicans see this as an opportunity to take out the three Democrats. And although the governor will be allowed to choose the three successors until the next election, Republicans still see this as an opportunity, along with the gains the GOP made in 2024, as an opportunity to reshape the Pennsylvania Supreme Court.
Well, Steve, according to the League of Women Voters, then, what is misleading about these mailers?
It goes back to a 2018 case when Pennsylvania's congressional districts were being redrawn. The League of Women Voters filed suit along with some other groups, basically calling out the design of the maps that was in Republican control. One district in particular was the 7th Congressional District, which consists of Lehigh, Northampton County, part of Berks. If you were to look at the way that district was drawn, and sometimes when you start doing the squiggly lines and everything, it looked like, I believe the phrase was Mickey Mouse kicking Donald Duck. You could actually see that. So the lawsuit was filed. The Supreme Court stood by the League of Women Voters and basically said that the Supreme Court's decision, the League of Women Voters decision was accurate. Mailers have been sent in support of those who do not want to retain the PA Supreme Court justices up for retention, saying that, no, they were behind this. They drew a bad map. Their maps were illegal. and trying to, as the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania said, basically providing a lot of misleading information and trying to direct voters to do something that they didn't have all the facts on. So the League of Women Voters came out, spoke out, said this was the truth about our case from 7 years ago, and you need to know this before you make such an important decision.
Steve, who is the League of Women Voters blaming for spreading what they say is this wrong information?
Most of the blame they're placing on Pennsylvania's richest man, Jeffrey Yass, a multi-billionaire, founder of the Susquehanna International Trading Group. A lot of his political activity, his political funding goes to the Commonwealth Leaders Fund. And the Commonwealth Leaders Fund has been very vocal, very active. And if you look on the back of these mailers, is paid for by Commonwealth leaders. But if you draw the connection, you connect the dots, you're going to see that it does go back to Jeffrey Yass. And certainly that name alone inspires so much ire when it comes to Pennsylvania Democrats that if they didn't need more of a alarm bell going off, just seeing Yass's name involved really raises the temperature. So I think a lot of people, Larry, when you look at off-year elections, you don't get the turnout that you typically would, even in a midterm, certainly not in a presidential. This is one of the premier races, certainly in the state, but probably in the country as well. A lot of eyes are going to be on Pennsylvania to see how this retention race ends up. And the League of Women Voters just want to make sure that the voters, when they go in to cast their vote, know all the facts.
Last question about this story, Steve. What does the League of Women Voters want to happen now? I mean, the mailers have already gone out. You can't recall them. What kind of remedy could be put into effect?
I think in this situation, what they really hope for is that the media will respond in whatever media format you choose, that you get the word out that what you may have received in these mailers is inaccurate. Here's where to go to get good information, whether you're going to Center Square, whether you go into Politics PA, whether you go to the League of Women Voters website. Make sure that you're well informed and you just don't take a political mailer that comes from a group that you have no idea what they're all about as gospel in this situation.
Christina, once again, let's talk about national news, meeting state politics as well. President Trump wants to deploy the National Guard to Oregon, and Josh Shapiro had a reaction to that. Can you summarize that?
Yeah, so Josh Shapiro is among several governors leading, or several Democratic governors who have been kind of in the crosshairs of this potential National Guard deployment. So when we talk about it happening in Oregon, then naturally the conversation moves to whether or not this could happen in Pennsylvania. He's been very clear that he is the leader of the National Guard. So if you think about the U.S. military with the president at the head, the National Guard is very similar, where the governor is the head of the state National Guard. So he's, been really clear about his control in that situation and his opposition to either Pennsylvania's National Guard being deployed within Pennsylvania or to other states that have not requested it.
I understand Governor Shapiro affixed his signature, and other signatures appeared on a letter from governors of other states about their opposition to this plan.
Yes, they said basically that this is unconstitutional, that it sort of violates state rights, and that it is an overreach on the president's part, and that there is no current activity happening either in Oregon or in Philadelphia that merits this kind of response, that the local police forces have everything well in hand.
Steve, let's go back to you and talk about a specific race in Congress in November's election. I understand a new candidate has announced for District 3. Now, for our viewers statewide, tell them briefly, what part of Pennsylvania is that?
District 3 is primarily Philadelphia County, which is pretty much the city of Philadelphia. So Representative Dwight Evans, 71 years old, has announced he's not running for re-election in 2026. A number of candidates have stepped forward, including Representative Chris Robb, State Senator Sharice Street, but the newest candidate that tossed her hat in the ring is Dr. Alice Stanford. Stanford is the first Black female pediatric surgeon solely trained in the United States. She rose to prominence during the 2020 COVID epidemic, with pandemic, with her actions in the city of Philadelphia. And that race is just becoming, with the city of Philadelphia so democratically controlled, it is pretty apparent that Democrat is going to win. So there is a lot of interest right now in getting involved. If my memory serves me correct, I believe Dr. Stanford is the first female that has entered the contest. So 2026 in Pennsylvania is shaping up as a fascinating time. Certainly in the traditional battlegrounds, whether it's District 1 with Brian Fitzpatrick against Commissioner Bob Harvey, whether it's in District 7 in the Lehigh Valley with Ryan McKenzie against a host of candidates, whether it's Pennsylvania's Congressional 8 up in the Scranton area, where Rob Bresnahan is going to face a big challenge from Scranton Mayor Paige Cognetti, whether it's the 10th District in Central PA, Scott Perry, always under fire, may face another challenge from Janelle Stelton. 2026 is shaping up to be a fascinating time, not only at the top of the ticket with Governor Shapiro and most likely Stacey Garrity, but there is going to be a lot of focus once again on the Keystone State and everything that's about to transpire.
Christina, while we're contemplating next month's election, let's consider a story you wrote about voter information. House Republicans want voters to give out more personal information. So it's important. What kind of information, anyway, do House Republicans want?
So the Department of Justice at the federal level sent requests to several states for more information from voter rolls than what is currently available. If you look at the publicly available voter rolls in Pennsylvania, you can see people's names, their addresses, their voting history, their registration, their sex, a lot of things about them. But the additional information requested includes driver's license information and social security information, which the Secretary of State, Al Schmidt, said, this is going above and beyond. This is overreach of the federal government here, and refused to send the additional information. So House Republicans they're introducing a bill where they would like to see the Department of State respond to the Department of Justice with the additional information.
Well, why do House Republicans want this extra information? It strikes me that they'd have to provide some kind of justification, especially to the Department of Justice.
Well, the Department of Justice is saying that this would enable them to make sure that we are having free and fair elections in the state of Pennsylvania, and that they are just doing due diligence to make sure that that's happening across the country. People are saying, you just don't need those particular details to know whether or not voting is happening fairly.
Steve, go ahead. I think you want to comment on this.
Larry, as someone who served as a former election director in York County for a couple of years, what Christina is saying is right. We used to use driver's license information and social security numbers basically as confirmations for the information that a voter was sending forward. They've been under fire for some time, and I can understand Secretary Schmidt's pushback in this respect in wanting to give that out. It's not necessary information for everyone to have. It was just information for election directors just to do the confirmation at the local level.
Hey, Steve, keep the floor while we're talking to you, and consider a story you're working on that has to do with a new poll that came out from Franklin and Marshall College. And the question at the top of that list is, what is the biggest problem facing Pennsylvania? And that's a question we all want the answer to. What did the poll say, Steve?
Interestingly enough, back in October, when you were being subjected to ad after ad after ad, nearly 30% of Pennsylvanians said the economy and personal finances was the biggest problem. Flip that ahead 12 months, and 23%, the largest number in the poll, said that the biggest problem facing Pennsylvania today was government and politicians. And certainly when you look at this, the poll was in the field apparently before the federal government shut down. So the reaction from Pennsylvanians, not only to the state budget impasse, but the possibility that the federal government can shut down, I think has led the average American just to say, we've just about had enough of our elected officials. Why can't you get this done? Why can't the governor bring House Democrats, Senate Republicans together? Why, when Republicans hold all the levers of the federal government, can't we get things done? It's not hard to say. I sense, and obviously those who took part in the F&M poll sense the same thing. There's just a lot of frustration out there right now.
Steve, let's consider one more question that is in the poll, and let's try to make it brief because our time is limited. The question is about how good a job Governor Shapiro is doing. What did the respondents say about that? Be brief, please.
If you're Josh Shapiro, you love the fact that 51% of respondents said that you are doing a good job. Quinnipiac came out a week or so ago and had his favorability numbers even higher. So right now, the first-term governor with possibly future political ambitions is riding the crest from very good reviews from his constituents in the state.
We only have about 2 minutes left on our show, Christina. I want to take in consideration a story you recently filed that has to do with legislation that would affect all these data centers we're hearing about that are supposed to be coming to Pennsylvania. One of the bills is from Representative Joe Webster, and it has to do with data centers reporting their usage of water. Now, for someone who doesn't know much about data centers, why is that important?
So data centers basically are very hot because they use these servers that run on a lot of electricity and they need water to cool down the equipment. One of the reasons Pennsylvania specifically is a desirable place to have these data centers is that we are not as hot of a climate as, if you were to build them in Arizona or somewhere in the South. So we have that to our advantage and we have ample water throughout the state, but it really comes down to whether or not you have the water available locally. So this legislation would ask data centers to be really clear about reporting how much water they plan to use and working with the local government to see if that's available through the public water supply and if the area has the capacity to use that water.
There are several bills that would affect data centers here, Christina, and try to tell us briefly about the one that concerns emergency preparedness at data centers. In other words, Representative Christina Sappi must have something in mind that maybe there's increased hazard of something happening at a data center. Try to tell us in about 30 seconds.
Yeah, that goes back to it being very hot in the data centers. So, and they're also very large and a complex sort of web of servers. So it's dangerous for firefighters to work in territory like that. And they just want to make sure that they have plans in advance in order to prevent anything catastrophic should there be a fire.
Our guests have been Christina Lengyel from the Center Square and Steve Ulrich from Politics PA. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
That is it for Journalist Roundtable. I'm Larry Casper. Thanks for watching.